My wife is doing her own thing. She's going out late, or maybe she's doing more yoga classes. Maybe she's going to therapy and she's doing more and more of her own thing. But I don't know if that's actually helping our marriage. Seems though she's more distant than ever. And what am I supposed to do? Should I just stay away from her? And how do we reconnect if we don't spend more time together? This is our topic here today on this live tribe call. My wife is working hard to love herself, but does that help our marriage? She's spending more time on her own. Maybe she's going back to school. But do all those things really help our marriage? And that's what we're talking about here today. This is an email from a man, one of my clients. He wrote, great topic today, one that closely pertains to my situation and probably many of the men in this call. I get nervous every week when my wife sees her individual therapist and understandably shares nothing with me about her goals. For all I know, she's using all that time and money to work on herself in the form of gathering the courage to end our marriage and become independent in a new life she envisions. However, it's worth the risk because I do accept that our marriage has 0% chance of reconciling into the kind of loving relationship I want until she rediscovers how to love herself and quiets her immature inner child that has led to her think it's my role to make her happy. Now I'll talk about that here in a second. Looking forward to a great discussion. Many thanks for coming in. You said you're
Yep.
back to this work. Yeah, tell us a little bit about your spot.
Met my wife in college 43 some years ago. She's a nurse, and we've been married for 37 years, got two daughters. Both got married 2 years ago, and just this fall, both had babies. So I have grandbabies now in the family. But our marriage, I think, in hindsight, looking back, I could see the writing on the wall. Probably 15 years ago, things started declining between us. And back in 2019, she just all of a sudden said she was done. No explanation, no nothing. And started basically walking by me in the house and not saying anything, not looking at me. She did that for almost a year. And during that time, her dad was diagnosed with leukemia and died within 3 months of her the diagnosis. And
Oh, wow. Yeah.
then a year later, her mom collapsed in the house, and we're the only one with a ranch house in the family. So we took her on back in 2020 during COVID. So we got her 93-year-old mother living with us. And so it's been like back in 2012, sex stop. And then just about everything after that declined too, including communication and appreciation and affection and all of those things. And so no sex for 12 years now. We just had our 37th wedding anniversary, and she bought me a card and acted like everything was great. And it's the first time I just decided, what's to celebrate.
Right.
And so I didn't. I didn't even acknowledge our wedding thing. And I just, it's been way too long without any explanation. She refuses to talk about it. I've honored her wishes, and I'm pretty much done. I told myself when her mom came to live with us, I wouldn't abandon her in the care for her mom, which I do most of. And so basically, she's got between now and the time her mom dies to come forward and start talking, because in my opinion, it's over.
That's a hell of a story. So, 12 years, no sex. So, since before you were 50,
Yes.
right? And so, of course, these things in life are happening, and you're a good man of integrity and you want to show up. You're an honorable man to help her and help her parents. And I understand that deeply, of course. So, what have the quickly, what have the ups and downs of the past decade been for you? There must have been times when you did your own thing and just tried not to think about it. There must have been times when you tried to reconnect with her. And then what do you want
Yeah.
now? That's what I'm curious about. The
I
last decade
mean,
for you, and what do you want now?
back in 2012, I took on a management position in my company, and it was to run a division of the company, a global division. And that's when the sex stopped. I don't know if it's related or what, but I had to bury myself to learn the job, and I'd been a product development engineering manager and an R&D manager for years, and that's my background, engineering. So, but when it stopped, I mean, I remember the first time, you roll over, you touch your wife, and it's not the intention to have sex, but just to have a little intimate moment before work or whatever. And she got out of bed and left the room, and She usually just went to the bathroom and came back, but she didn't come back. And that happened probably a half a dozen times before I just started sleeping outside of the bedroom. I thought, until she has the wherewithal to tell me what the problem is, then I'm just going to sleep in another room because it's just, I couldn't believe it. I thought we were still tight. And, both kids were going to college then, which the pressures are high too. It's why I took the upper management job. It was for more money to pay for college.
Right.
But, in hindsight, I think, I probably didn't give her the attention she really deserved through those rough times, when we were going through it. I didn't know that I could even spare the energy with all the stuff that I had going on and what was on my shoulders. So, yeah. So I do play a role for sure.
Sure. Well, any man that's here, any man that I work with, or the man that's watching this takes responsibility for himself. Those are the kind of guys that I attract, and this work attracts. So I appreciate that about you. So I have maybe an obvious question. Did you
Yeah.
did you ask her about it? I have to know the
Oh,
story.
yeah.
So what did she say, or what happened between the two of you when she's leaving the room these 6 times in a row, and then you start sleeping in another room? Did you guys talk about it?
Yeah, we did. I tried to at least, but she's always been the type to kind of shut down, go silent for a couple of days, and then usually we'd come back together and talk it over and understand each other. But it just wasn't happening. I remember back when just before her dad died, I had her captive in the car for a while, tried to have a conversation with her, and she just basically told me, be patient and work on yourself. And that was probably the last conversation we had about having a conversation. She did not want to talk about our marriage or our relationship or what was going on with her or nothing. And so when I confronted her after that we should talk about it, and she basically said, "Don't talk to me again about our relationship or our marriage until I'm ready." And that was back in 2019. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, well, what do you want now with your life and the rest of your time as far as feeling alive and intimacy and closeness with someone and openness and trust? What do you want in your life?
Well, I would love to have a relationship with a woman that appreciated me for what I bring to the table. And, all of the things most guys want, affection and, open conversation, the ability to talk about difficult things with knowing that everything's going to be okay after our conversation, that I'm not here to attack you. I'm not here to react in a poor way. Let's work through this. And I think most technical guys, engineers types, accountant types, they're very rational, and I consider myself to be that. So, but I also have an emotional side, and this has been very hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the world is starting to come around to that men have emotions too. But
Yeah,
what I find sad and also laughable at the same time is this assumption that women are automatically good with emotions or women are automatically good with
yeah,
relationships, and many of them are not.
yeah,
And I think maybe if we both of us could come down off of our, pedestal or our horse and meet each other in a human way and
yeah,
open to one another. And I mean, your wife hasn't shared, from what you just told, those small story, hasn't shared really anything about what's going on for her, what the pain is for her, why she feels distant. And that's a piece of a woman working on herself. She wants to feel alive in the different parts of her identity, right? But if she doesn't want to show up for the relationship, what can we do? And you've been waiting for a long time.
yes,
Yeah. So what do you want
probably
now?
longer
What's
than
the
most people, but
yeah, what's the next
the
step for you?
the marriage commitment meant a lot to me when I made it. It took a long time for me to make that choice. And because I saw a lot of relationships when I was growing up go to the dark side, let's say, and I wanted to be sure. And I took time. I took the whole time through college. I told her that we won't get married until after college. It'll be a good test of our relationship, and so that's what we did. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So what do you want now? What are you thinking? You didn't, like you said, recognize the anniversary. And so what do
Well, I
you want now?
struggle, I try to envision myself without her, and it's hard to, we've been together for so long, and but I don't want to just stay together because, of the commitment thing that I made to her or, to keep the family situation in good standing, because it would be difficult if we were to divorce and still have this extended family that we have now. And so I think about all these things, but I also think that, I'm valuable and I'm worth having someone in my life that really appreciates and loves me. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what question might you have for me right now?
I don't know. I love listening to the guys. You guys have really helped me. You yourself, Jeff and Cynthia, and the team at Good Guys, the Great Men, all of those guys are great. And I've learned so much about myself and about the world and relationships and how things work and psychology and attachment theory and you name it, all the books. And I just got sick of reading after a while. I don't think I've
Yeah.
read a book like that in a couple of years now, but I'm thinking, well, maybe I should get back into it. But I just don't, I see her, she's making an effort to talk to me and I look at her and I think, why now? Why now? And I do hold some resentment, honestly, and I'm having trouble getting over that. You guys always say that, you really shouldn't make a change to your marriage until you can do it without anger and resentment. So I'm still not there yet.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So two things. One is, well, actually, I've got a drawing that I started yesterday with a guy that I never finished. So one thing to consider is and you've probably heard this before, and I want to ask you about this, is the little girl. Let's imagine that this is her little girl and this is our little boy, our attachment styles from childhood, our hurts from childhood, right? We all
Sure.
have this, and she
Yeah.
has this as well. And so some reason she closed down at some point in the past. And we don't need to try to figure that out right now. But one way, because you said resentment. So one way to think about resentment is what is that little girl had to experience in her childhood? What was put upon her that she never asked
Mm.
for? What kind of examples of parenting and relationship and intimacy did she see?
Mhm.
And that's one way to journal about this, to pray about this, to have perspective on that little girl when she was 7, when she was 12. What did she see? What did she not see? And that helps move it away from the adult woman we see right now into the rocks that she's had to carry that were hoisted upon her when she was young. So that's a way to think about resentment. Okay. And then otherwise, she's coming to you and trying to talk, it sounds like. So
Yeah.
sometimes talking is just really, really hard, is way too hard, and sometimes just basic level connection. So maybe she comes to you and starts the conversation, and you say, "Hey, come over here and sit down with me." And you just sit down on the couch next to her, and you put her hand on your hand, just sitting next to her on the couch, and you breathe for 30 seconds with just her hand on your hand or your hand on hers, just between the two of you on the couch cushions, not even on her leg, not on your leg, just on the couch cushion between you. And both of you will probably feel lightning shoot through your body, closure, upset, memories from the past, boredom, uncomfortable feeling of not sure what to say or what to do. And in that moment, you would be leading her for 30 seconds or 2 minutes, however long, just to sit and be together with some form of connection, the simplest, most basic human connection without having to say anything, without having to fix anything. And if you were to do that a few times a week, let's say, where you say, hey, and it might just be random, a few evenings a week, however many days a week you do it. Hey, come over here and come look at the sunset with me. And you hold her hand for 30 seconds, looking out the window without trying to say anything. That would bring about the next level of connection between the two of you without having to really do much. Now, some men don't even want to do that. Some men are kind of fed up and so pained and so resentful that they're not even ready to make any effort whatsoever. And you may decide that the intimacy or she lost her chance or the two of you, that's no longer there, it's dead. And if you are to decide that, you want to try these little bits of connection first before you
Hmm.
make that kind of decision. So how does that come across to you? First of all, seeing her little,
Oh,
little girl resentments, and then just sitting next to
yeah. I
her.
mean, I could definitely try such things. I have in the past, but it sticks with you when you've been rejected for so long, and all the projection and passive aggression and emasculation through all that time. It's it's difficult to not think about those things when you're in the same room. So yeah, but I'm definitely willing. I'm up for trying anything. It's not over until it's over, I would say. I really want some accountability on her end, though. I want to understand, and I know that won't happen in one conversation, but she's got to be willing to start the conversation, and I don't see it happening. So,
Yeah, okay. So these would be two things that you just said. One is she'd need to be willing to have a conversation,
yeah,
and two, that you both take some accountability,
yes,
right? And so let's say she tries to talk. You're there with your hand on her hand, or she pulls her hand away even.
yeah,
And you would say, if we're to move forward together as a couple, if we're to break this ice that's been here for a long time, I want us to talk and I want us to both say what we're accountable for. Now, that's kind of a big ask, but that's what you just said that you need. And it's been
yeah,
long enough now, and I'm sure she's an intelligent woman and I'm sure she's aware of what's going on. But it's a non-starter for you unless she takes some level of accountability. Is that right?
yeah, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So those simple things are what they help you have a frame for yourself so that
Mm,
it's not just an ocean of what do I say, what do I do, but I've given you, well, three things. One, this is for you to consider the little girl when maybe you've already done that. So it gives you some
mhm.
perspective and compassion for her. Two, sit down on the couch, put her hand on your hand for 30 seconds. Three, if there's any kind of movement to be had, it's that you both take some accountability for what's happened in the past. And if those things, those are just the basic next steps for you. And you know you don't need to do anything other than those
Mm,
until you decide if this relationship isn't for you, then what do you do? I have many men in your spot. Some have decided to go practice talking with other women and being social out in the world and not
mm.
making a decision on their marriage right now, but starting to feel alive by just talking, literally just talking with other people and other women included.
Yeah, I
Some,
do
some,
that. I
yeah.
do that now.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah,
How's
yeah.
that feel to you when you talk with other women and
Feels
they,
good, I feel like I got a good sense of humor. I always make the women that I talk to laugh, and so that feels really good, to get something back. But I would never cheat on her ever. I've had opportunities and I never would do it. So
right? And
yeah,
you'd want to make that decision to leave the relationship before you ever
yeah,
got physical.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, thanks. It's great to talk with you. I appreciate you coming on in.
Thank you, Jeff.
This is a quote from Brene Brown, the social researcher around self-love and love. She says, "Love is not something we give or get. It's something that we nurture and grow. A connection that can only be cultivated between two people when it exists within each one of them. We can only love others as much as we love ourselves." And that's a piece of this topic today of a woman wanting to work on herself and does it help our marriage? Now, she can't just throw stones in a glass house at you. That's not going to help, right? But a woman that begins to feel love within her own self, it's an act. It's something that we grow and nurture. And that's what I, of course, was saying is that it has to be something that we both take some accountability for at some level. Otherwise, it can't grow. Be able to come in?
Well, one, I want to say to Jim, that was powerful sharing of a extraordinary circumstance, and I wish you the best and send love and good thoughts to you as you make it through that. And that conversation is probably helpful for anybody to listen to who's going through anything. I am two things I should just bring up. I'm going to get in the Uber car in a minute, which is not the place for
Sure,
intimate,
yeah.
sort of sharing with the Uber driver in the front seat. But in a nutshell, before I get in the car, um, is worked with Steve and become a friend, horseman, and learned a lot in that world, especially the basic confidence that no matter what happens, that I'm going to be okay in any kind of struggle. I don't know anybody who's been in a relationship that hasn't had sort of moments of wondering, is this going to continue or where this is going to be? And I thought that this topic that I just happened to see this morning is pretty germane in a lot of cases. My wife took a dream job out of the country that has been extraordinary. She's been extraordinary and has been a real sort of focus for her, and which has been, I've been completely supportive of her in that world, in doing it, as well as the sort of burdens of, commuting to help make that happen. And that job or situation is likely going to come to an end. And I think that the sort of questions remain while exploring that, what's next for her, not really having conversations of what's next for us, and being okay with that it may be a very, sort of focus on herself alone without much of a seeming consideration where we stand. And so anyway, so that the topic seemed to be a really good one to, sort of sit into for a moment, and to use is going to have to take some leadership in bringing that conversation forward, in that the, sort of all the dominoes that happen every 4 years with elections, have can trigger a lot of, sort of change in anybody who's, sort of government related, jobs. And that conversation, the sort of conversation you guys are just having, of how to, sort of bring those things to the forefront, and how to be supportive with at the same time, wanting to figure out where the quote we or I am in considerations. So anyway, that's sort of pretty much a nutshell.
If you're willing to keep chatting a little bit and we try to keep this kosher, that'd be cool. If you have to drop off, that's fine. But so real quick, what's the overarching narrative of your relationship right now? What I mean is, what's your shared goal? If I were to sit down and talk with both of you, it's like what's the shared mission of your relationship right now? Is it to foster her career as much as possible and you follow her and support her? Is it kids? What's the narrative of your relationship right now?
I think that's probably fair. That has really just been a time she's had periods in my career, we're both professionals, where she's been, supportive. We've raised two kids that are now, the youngest one's in college. And so I was very, very happy to play, a role of, supportive spouse. And I think I've done that really well.
Okay, good.
Um,
So if I can jump in, what's the one or two, before you get into the Uber, what's the one or two things that you want out of life, the relationship, logistics of what's upcoming? What do you want?
yeah, I mean, the distance thing isn't even much, hasn't been a much of an issue, and have found freedom and happiness even when I've been by myself, which has been a good discovery. But I think what is pretty common of anybody, any man who's, wants to be, you know, appreciated, and with a woman who is expressive of that and recognizes the positives and the attributes. And I think sometimes when women are in really, intense professional work situations, that every other priority, and I understand how draining that could be, but how tough it can be sometimes to be in a scenario where they lose sight of almost anything else because of how draining that could be, and to just not have anything left in the tank to quote sort of be there for a partner.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sure. There's an idea of when we want to lead, which is what you said. How can I lead and have this conversation? And often behind that is an agenda that we have that we're trying to get across. Like we want her to feel a certain way, we want her to do a certain thing. But what we're leapfrogging, we're getting ahead of ourselves, cart before the horse style, is asking her what she wants. Meaning, if I was you and if I were coaching you, for instance, I would say, okay, the first thing to do is go to her and say, I'm excited about XYZ. I love that you're doing ABC in your life and what's true. Because if the narrative right now is to support her in her career, that's the priority, basically, if that's the narrative. And then you ask, so where do you see our relationship in the world right now? In the world of your job, in the world of how much you work and the hours you do every week, sweetheart. where do you see our relationship? Like, how much time do you want us to spend together? How much caring back and forth do you want each of us to have with one another? But that would be what I would be asking next.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And I think the idea of taking the lead is a recent lesson. She had something that she's doing in a different city in the States, which is a rare opportunity. And I was making a plan to go meet. And she sort of put a stiff arm a bit just because I think how intense what she was getting ready to do. And I think that part of the issue was feeling a burden since we hadn't seen each other, and I canceled my plans to connect. She wanted to try to do it the next week when she was not going to be so busy. And a shared visit with my daughter, for example, at her college. And I took offense to it, but I also, just sort of stepped away and didn't take the lead in sort of making the daily phone calls that we connected. And in the vacuum, she didn't call me, and we had our first extended sort of period of not talking at all, which just was not helpful on any way, shape, or form. This is generally has been uncomfortable, sort of diving into relationship type issues. Um, and now realize that that leadership position is as much as you want somebody else to step up from time to time and say, hey, ask the questions or move the ball forward, that the it is sort of incumbent on me to sort of again take the lead on any of these issues across the board.
Sure. And so what's the pitfall there? What's the concern there? Or what's the issue for you of taking the lead on these things? It sounds like maybe that's a challenge for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I just sometimes you get tired of sort of being the person driving things forward. I mean, really, almost that simple. Tired of sort of taking the lead and wanting someone else to care about the relationship or scenario, and wanting somebody to be in a situation where it's equally as important. And so anyway, all those are just issues, sort of period that are to grapple with from time to time.
Sure, that makes sense. Okay, so I'll press pause and I'll ask the other guys about this too. I appreciate it. So, of course, it makes incredible sense that you would love for her to come to you with a giant smile on her face and say, I miss you, sweetheart, and jump in your arms when she sees you after getting past security in the airport and these kind of things. And of course, this is a dream that we have and a desire that we have. And then we turn and we look at the realities of our life and it doesn't match that fantasy, and that then there's pain, the pain between expectation and reality, so to speak. And of course, I understand that. Can any other man relate to this? I'd love for you to unmute yourself and come on in. And who gets tired of leading, especially when she's busy with work or she has these roles in the world? Unmute yourself and come on in. How can you relate?
Good morning.
Hey, good to see you.
Great to see you.
Yeah, you bud.
So, yeah, I can relate to all of this. You know my story a little bit, Jeff. I spent much of my 30-year marriage looking outside of me, feeling resentful, feeling bitter, hoping that my wife would change, and looking for her for answers, looking to her for answers. Questions that I had that I wish she would tell me, what's the status? What's going on with this? What's going on with that? Looking outside of me until I finally understood that I had to get clear about myself, kind of like what you were saying.
Yeah, sure. So how did you deal with times when she was distant or when you felt burdened by needing to lead or wanting to more with her?
Sorry, I lost some privacy for a moment here, so I'm gonna have to put a pause on it.
Sure. Yeah. Who else has faced this before when you want more from her, but you also feel burdened by the need to lead? Who else can relate to this?
You and I are working on that every time we talk, eh? Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going through a similar phase. Although, man, I put in the chat there, but the amount of strength you must have to endure your situation for as long as you did is like incredible. I've only been at this for, I don't know, 15, 16 months. So good on you, brother. There's a deep well there. So it feels a little silly to talk about, feeling exhausted at leading in the face of that. But I think there's still a little bit in me of, have I done the right things yet? Rather than am I truly leading for my sake, and am I truly sort of grounded in what I want, and therefore asking for that for no other reason than, making sure I have the life that I want. And my wife can sense that, like they all can. She can sense that there's still a little bit of uncertainty and a little bit of like wanting validation and wanting that emotional hose. And I think until I overcome that, I'm probably going to keep getting the same response.
Well, it's complicated, right? It's complicated in that she maybe has had to focus on her own life for a long time and the kids and work, and it pushes out all the intimacy, the space for intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
She feels burdened too. And then you and we come around to, okay, I want more connection. I want more depth in my life. And she's thinking, where the hell was this? Where the hell was this years ago? Where has this been all along? I hear that in the men's voice as well. All of a sudden, it's
Yeah.
our fault. Where has this been all along? So it's hard to come back from a place of being underwater. But what do you think about it being a burden or incumbent upon us as men to lead out of these places?
Well, I saw an interesting quote that I've been reflecting on for the last, or maybe it was a Vine or a reel, and it was this guy talking about, the price on men is your peace, because your job is to provide the peace for your family, and the price of that is your peace, and carrying that burden of holding the world back so that your family can have peace is the masculine burden. And so in a sense, it doesn't go away, I think, is what I've been reflecting on. It's like I keep waiting for this to go away.
Hmm.
Like if I get to a point, I won't have to feel this burden anymore, but maybe that's actually the job.
Well, the weight on our shoulders, right? Atlas. And
Yeah.
so play with me with this, right? The masculine ideal, or yang and yin, the yang of the world is to step back from emotion, to have space around emotion, to not fall into despair or joy or elation in any particular moment, but to be Atlas, carrying all of that on our shoulders, so to speak. That's the masculine archetype. That's the masculine ideal. And for the feminine or emotion, it's all about flow in the moment. Even us, when we're in joy, when our our favorite team scores points, or it's our child's birthday party, like we feel an incredible joy, and there's no one holding the container in that moment necessarily. But for a woman to flow and want to put on the lacy thing for us and show up as that archetype, show up as the mermaid or the fairy, she needs to have structure around her. But a lot of women aren't in that mindset. She's not necessarily even wanting that. That's why I said, hey, the next step is to ask her, well, what does she want? And if she doesn't want any of that, if she doesn't want to show up for us or care really about the depth of relationship right now, then we're both holding we're both holding different containers. We're both Atlas. We're both in the yang. And then what do we do from there? So what are your thoughts on that spot?
I mean, there's a bit of like putting on the masculine and the feminine there, right? If she feels she has to carry the world as well, which I think my wife has felt for a long time. I don't know. I just keep coming back. I know I sound like a broken record with it, but that image of the castle, right? Like there's this, we talk about being container, being frame. I think the feminine wants to sort of dance in the flowers, right? But the world's a really scary, dangerous place. And the job of Atlas is to sort of build the walls, guard the walls, keep the danger out, so that she can just settle into her feminine and be in her flow and dance in the flowers. And that's the job. It is to take that burden from her so she can be more feminine. And I think maybe in a case where you've got a high pressure, your wife's in a high pressure situation, she has to step into the masculine. She's probably just desperate, channeling my inner Cynthia here, desperate to find a place where she can just flow into and feel feminine and escape from that reality. And the bigger the woman, the bigger the space you need to create, I think, is something I'm thinking about. And I don't mean bigger physically, I mean bigger in spirit.
Sure. Well, or she's had to put her feminine side on pause to go be powerful in the world often.
Yeah.
That's a lament of many women that and this is something that Cynthia has talked about as too, as well, is that in the world, often being more angular, directed, powerful, disagreeable is respected and appreciated and rewarded in the world. And that moves away from the soft openness of what we're wanting, or maybe even what she's wanting. So how do we carve out windows of time where she will pour herself into our riverbanks, where she does want to step into our castle walls? That's what I'm And even with the come and sit down on the couch, put my hand on her hand, that's a small frame where I'm asking her to just flow in the moment and not have to do anything or say anything. But in your case, let me ask you, are there windows that you've carved out with your wife? Okay, I'm going to invite you into this hour of time. I'm going to invite you into this 30 minutes of time.
Just FYI, this is Jeff following up on his homework he's given me. Yes and no. I mean, I think those little moments, like the advice you give around hand on hand, or come here, come sit beside me, I'm doing a good job of. But like the intentional, hey, let's carve out this moment and or this time on Friday and be together. I'm not doing a great job of. And I think those moments, like I guess the light bulb's kind of going off a little bit for me here. Those are like micro castle moments, micro safety moments that you're creating. And so it's your leadership and your ability to like let her melt for a second, let her feel safe for a second, let her take the angular armor off for a second, even if that doesn't mean she wants to be intimate with you or you've solved the relationship problem. Giving her that second and the practice of giving her those seconds over and over and over again is the ladder to her feeling ultimately safe with you. Is that a
Yeah.
fair?
Well, that absolutely. Those need to be sprinkled in, and it's our practice just as it is an invitation for her to practice and relax. Those are necessary. I think at the beginning of relationship, we automatically do that. Biology drives us. Maybe no kids. It's just a lot easier, but we need to do it intently. So let me turn the page and ask you about.
Yeah, I do want to jump. I'm in the Uber, but I will jump in. Of a very small, very first step is probably good advice in any situation of not trying to solve it with whatever the issue is with some big, thing that's going to lead to an ultimate answer that we're all seeking, but taking some very, very small, what's that 2 minute handhold, for example, it seems like a very, very small, step that, can hopefully lead to the 3 minute or the 5 minute or 10 minute of things that, hey, I'm here for you. We're here for each other and let's figure it out from there, as opposed to ignoring the question. And it sounds like, there's just an unbelievable job of strength to ignore his needs for a tremendous amount of time. And so anyway, I was just gonna say I thought that I was just sort of chiming in with that advice. I think was just good general advice for everyone.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. As far as that goes, then usually men will tell me, Jeff, I'm so sick of the one having to be, again, the leader. I'm so sick of having to one to have my shit together and she can just take it or leave it or choose when she engages with me or not, or she shames me or rejects me. And that's a part of the peace, the challenge to our peace that he's talking about. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Yeah, come on back in, please.
I don't want to dominate, so I just want to just leave with one idea. So I'm running a bit of an experiment right now, and it might be something for others to try. Which is, I notice that every time I get that moment with my wife, whether I'm holding her hand, whether she's coming up to me for a hug, whether we're sitting on the couch, that I wasn't aware that my intention or my orientation was to like soak that up, like okay, I'm getting the love that I want, I'm getting the attention, I'm getting the touch. And what I've tried to be aware of doing, and I'm just seeing how it works out, is flipping it and like, what am I giving in that moment? Am I giving her a sense of peace? Am I thinking about holding the scary world back for her in that moment so that she can just be water? And I swear there's like a serious difference in how her body responds, even though I'm not saying anything, doing anything. I'm just flipping the intention. And so I'm going to keep running it. And I don't know, Jeff, what your opinion on that would be, but it seems to be something that is worth doing.
Oh, that's great. That's incredibly well said. I mean, I'm sure your vibe, your body language is going to be different. She's going to feel it in a different way that you're not taking, but showing up to give. Absolutely. That's fantastic. So let me add to that. Yeah, around this idea of, well, how do I have peace enough within myself to do that? How do I see this as a framework? And this is the framework I use with my clients and in my group coaching as well. So at the very base here is our masculine frame. And what is masculine frame? So before we can offer emotional safety to her, we have to have our own masculine frame and peace. And before we can offer those masculine frame and safety to get to leadership, how do we get to intimacy? How do I invite her into intimacy? How do I ask her to open more to me? How do I ask her to give more priority to the relationship? That's leadership and intimacy. But we have to have our own frame first before we can even offer emotional safety. And that's what you're exactly. So masculine frame is our own peace. And how do we come within peace within ourselves? It's a spiritual concept. It's something we can't count on our fingers. It's understanding the difference between expectation and reality. So when we look at her and her childhood, and maybe she's not the perfect woman, of course, because we're not the perfect guy either. What's the difference between the vision that I'm hoping for, the literal fantasy that I have in my mind, and the reality of who this woman is in front of me? And coming to grips and terms with our own faults, our own failures is a big piece of this, which is why we are here. This is why you are here. It's why I'm here, to be forever learning and coming to peace with that she's not perfect, that she probably doesn't know what to say a lot of the time, that she's probably focusing on work or her own therapy because of so much pain she's felt in the past, that she isn't great at leading or cultivating intimacy. And so it relies on us to be Atlas. And that demand is the reality of this situation. And if you're in a spot in which many men are, where maybe you're deciding this isn't a fit any longer, maybe you're deciding that she's either not able or willing to take the next step towards you or toward the two of you. And if you decide, well, I need to turn a page in my life, that's a really tough decision. It's a decision of our integrity and the promises that we've made. And what about the kids? And when they come home for Christmas, will that still happen? This is a very difficult, challenging space for men. And that's why we're having this call. That's why we're here. Right? So we have a little bit more time left today. I'd love for another man to come in. What question might you have? Unmute yourself and come on in. And by the way, if you're watching this recording, for instance, and you want to be a part of these live calls, get on my subscriber list here, greatmenmovemountains.com/new subscriber. And you'll get invites to these free calls. You get invites to our new trainings that come out. We're writing a book right now, so you'll get on our book list. Basically, it's a free way. You punch in your email address to know when we're going to have these calls upcoming, and you can engage in them or not. Maybe you're in an Uber the whole time, and that's fine. Yeah, please come on in.
So going back to the 3-level thing, the masculine frame, what is it? Emotional safety, and then the leadership.
That's right. Yes.
I know. I mean, obviously, you know my situation and where we're at. I feel like it's taken me. This is the 5th month that we're here, 4.5, 5th month that we've been in this funk, and it seems like the last 2 weeks, the masculine frame part, I'm getting pretty good at. I'm getting much better at, without trying to take it too far. And it seems like over this week especially, she has like almost came to me with wanting to spend time, like short periods of time, almost like short bursts, but like she'll come in and start the conversation instead of me having to initiate the conversation. And then to hear what just said, that just hit really hard, because I feel like in most of those, if not all of the opportunities that I have, it's like I'm sitting there soaking it in, and it's like it builds me up. And I don't think I've thought at all about what is she gaining from the interactions that we have. So that was kind of a big, I don't know if that'll be a huge shift, but that was just an eye opener for me right now. And then just to tally on to the burden of leadership. I know in my particular case, I did a really pissy job of leading. I don't think I ever looked at it as an opportunity to lead. And I think listening kind of, again, changed the perspective. I don't think it's a burden, at least for me. I think it's a blessing to have the ability to now, as I'm growing and changing and becoming a better man, like a full man, not just a half man or a child, because that's how I behaved for so long. It's a blessing to be able to have that ability to lead her to where I want things to go, with her participation and understanding that it's not my responsibility necessarily to provide her happiness. It is my responsibility to provide her safety and an area for her to, like we've been saying in the call, to flow and to be feminine. But it is absolutely my responsibility as the man to lead our family and to put us in the best possible position, to have the ability to be happy. So I don't know if that's a question, but that's just kind of where I'm at right now. And I think slowly over this week, it seems like that opportunity may present itself as to where it didn't seem like that before. So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
well said. How did you change your mindset to see all that as a blessing? The burden of leadership, the gift of you offering leadership.
Well, I think first off, it's I have to, you know. I think where I'm at right now, I don't really have an option to look at it as a burden because I did for so long, like it was frustrating at times where I had to make a decision in the home or be responsible for we had to replace our air conditioning and being responsible for doing that and things like that. It was always a burden. And as to now, I feel like it's an opportunity for me to show up as the man that I want to show up as because I didn't do that. So I don't perspective, sometimes it just takes a little bit of a perspective change. Just, I don't know the best way to describe it, but I know where I want to go. I know I have a vision in my mind as to what our family and our marriage and our relationship can be. And I know that I can get us there by leading. Cause I mean, there's no other way she's not going to take the lead right now, you know? And maybe that's been the biggest way for me to change my perspective is kind of understanding that. If it was up to her and it was her lead, we would stay in this limbo land, for as long as possible. And I don't want to, I accept it right now, but I'm not going to accept it forever. So
That's a part of this is knowing that you're not okay if the relationship was like this forever, but this is a phase and you're okay in this phase. So let me ask, right? You and I have been talking a lot about in the previous months here about the pain of her distance, the pain of the demand, so to speak, the crucible that you're going through right now. And yet today you seem very relaxed around that request, that burden, that necessity, and it doesn't feel painful to you in this moment. So what about a man that's in that pain now? How have you turned the page for yourself where you don't feel so, difficult around that? It feels more at ease to you today.
I think number one, I've these last 2 weeks, I've really taken time to accept it. That was probably the hardest thing for the first few months. I was asking so many questions of myself and how was it so easy and why, oh, things weren't that bad. I wasn't that bad. I don't know. I'm not as hard on myself right now as I was early, just done a lot of reflection. I've let go of a lot of my own insecurities. I think listening to the call Wednesday night and listening to him talk about all the women that he's talking to kind of made me just again just a perspective change. I'm not going to be alone the rest of my life. I don't want to go through that. I want to be with her. I have there's zero feeling in my body that is different than that. Like I want her, but I also know that like I think so I bring a lot to the table, man. And I don't mean it in some arrogant way, but if she's not going to be the woman that's going to allow that to happen, then there's another one out there that will be lucky enough to. Would it suck for my kids? Yes. Oh, I don't want to go through that. I don't want them to go through that, but I'm going to be all right. And I think knowing that and really like I think I've told myself enough that now that I believe it.
Right.
And so I can kind of sit still in the moment right now, and just being patient. Just being patient. I know what I want, this path of growth and like I feel like a man. And I don't know a better way to describe it because for the longest time I felt like like I woke up, I went to work, I provided for the home, and that was kind of where it stopped. So I don't know, man. I feel like a man, and I'm not even 30% of what I think I can be right now. So
Nice, bud. Yeah, that's very well said. Love it. Good stuff. Good to see you. Yeah, come on in.
Thanks, Jeff. I think, listening to this, and we do this work for ourselves, not for the relationship, the marriage. It's for us to get better as who we are and be able to sit with the inner kid and he can come out and play sometimes, but most of the time you're going to be the one that's driving. But, on the other end of the spectrum is there is some responsibility incumbent upon the spouse to do the work that helps become or helps it helps us to a certain extent with the castle walls. And from the aspect of you don't want to be it's all a metaphor at this point, but building the walls and then having somebody come around and just start pushing things down.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just like, shit, I just built that, now I got to reframe it. So and I know that values, standards, boundaries, nuts, it encompasses some of that. However, if the relationship or the partner in the relationship is not able to rise to that same level, then it's problematic, is it not? I mean, they can love themselves, but if they're butting up against, what we're trying to establish, and for the most part, it can be something reasonable. What happens? I think it becomes the time is this, you start developing your exit strategy, and maybe this isn't the person.
So I have something I want to say. I got another graphic I can show about that. But do you have a
Mm-hmm.
particular example of, okay, she's done something that's violated a boundary, it sounds like, or goes against one of your values, and so then you're asking yourself at a foundational level, is this the person for me? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there's that, and then there's a different type of connection that I'm looking for, and I'm not confident that ability or connection. I've lost some words here at the moment, but
Sure.
if that truly exists.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that plays right into and you've probably seen this before, but all the guys that haven't seen this before. So what I teach and what I'm aiming for and what I practice in the world and what I want is a level 3 relationship, deep conscious intimacy where we're growing together. We want to experience new things together, adventure together. We can learn more, experience more together than we could apart, right? But it's based off of, and only level 3 here is highlighted, but it's based off of level 1 first of instinctual desire, instinctual attraction, and her wanting to move into her feminine and us wanting to be masculine. If that's the role that each of us want to play, some couples want to flip that, or some couples don't want that, but I want to be more masculine and I want my woman to be more feminine, so to speak. And so there's level 1 of instinctual things. Like if I gained 150 pounds, I wouldn't expect her to be as physically attracted to me in a level 1 kind of way. If I lost my job and had no ambition or intention to make any kind of money, I wouldn't expect her to feel safe in a level 1 instinctual kind of way. So those things need to be there for both of us. Then really quickly, level 2 is healthy communication, meaning can we talk about things without dramatic escalation? Can I ask for what I want? Can she ask for what she wants, and we can talk about it and make things happen without shaming one another, stonewalling, bashing one another verbally. That's what level 2 is. Can we have healthy communication? And we have to have 1 and 2 to build into 3. And so what you're talking about is, does she have the ability or desire or want to go to level 3? Maybe she's the kind of person that just wants the chemistry of level 1 to happen automatically and to kind of like not really talk at all, not really have communication, just you're supposed to read my mind. If I have to tell you, then you don't love me and all this BS, which isn't true or right, of course. Is this what you're meaning? Does she even have the capability or desire to go to a level 3? Is that what you mean?
Yes, but does she even know that exists?
Right. And
And
so
then,
that's a place where
because
we have to lead that idea, and that's why you're here. That's why we're here.
yeah,
Right.
but I mean, after was like, I guess, 24 years of marriage and maybe 28 years together, oh, there was definitely a leadership vacuum during that period of time because, like you said early on, the biology, I'm throwing a lot into it, kids come along, and then it just became a life of reaction, so to speak. What do the kids need? What do we got to do here? Everything else, and losing both of ourselves in that mass. So, but I think there would be some type of, if the desire was there, that they would do the work. I'm not sure what's going on. We're separated, so it's not really, but they
Yeah.
would do the work
You know, I
to
know what you're
figure out,
saying.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, and I know about
yeah,
your spot in particular, and that might be unique.
yeah.
The general answer that I would say is many women don't know that that's possible. Many women just go on by default what they saw and unconsciously replay from childhood or what they see on TV or movies or all this, where you're just supposed to hold a boombox up underneath their window and then you kiss and the curtains close and then I guess you just fuck like rabbits for the rest of everything's just
Yeah.
happy. You automatically
Yeah.
know how to keep her happy for the rest of life. None of that's real. And so if she's steeped in those fantasies, she might not really have any idea or ability. If there's a sport that you've never seen, I mean cricket, I don't know how to play cricket. I could pantomime the 4 minutes I've seen on, TV, but I have no idea what the rules are. I don't know what the positions are, how many men are on the field, I don't know anything about the game of cricket. But if I'm trying to play baseball, we're going to be off, off base, literally, and pun intended, I guess. I'm not sure where this is going. But if she doesn't have any idea of really what a level three could be, then she has to learn. And where is she going to learn? Well, we have to base it in our own ability, our own leadership first. And we didn't get into all that today, of course, but that's the basis of what I teach. And you've been on calls, and a lot of these guys have been on those calls too. So for you, let me ask one more question. Have you invited her into the basics of a level three moment? And I don't know if that's even in the cards for the two of you right now, but in the past, maybe did you invite her into just a level three moment together?
No, I didn't know it existed. I mean, prior to starting, I mean, everything, from when I joined, I think the first one was Great Men, or no, Good Guys to Great Men, and the round table there, and then I
Yeah.
moved into the divorce bomb and all of that. But I did not, you know, have any understanding of that. I mean, I had some operating principles in which I lived by, but then it was like, oh shit, there's all this too, and so I started addressing all of that, but I have not, and I don't even know if the invitation right now, because I still feel that's because she comes over in the morning and sometimes we run into each other and whatnot, but there's a sense of avoidance there.
Right.
And I mean, well, I mean, it doesn't bother me. I'm not taking that personally any longer. That's her trait. But to straight out answer your question, I have not. No. And with a side note of I didn't know it was possible. I didn't know what to expect. I don't have a boombox.
Yeah. Would you even want that with her right now?
I've gotten to the point where there is no more enmity or any deep-seated anger about the situation. I'm cool with it. I know that either way, I'm going to be okay. And I'm not sure that really maybe it's just no longer the right fit. I'm like right with that decision at this point. And I answer your question there?
You're at peace with where things are.
Yes.
And I don't know if she would even be able to answer the question if she wants more with you. If she were to, would she say, no, I'm done forever if I asked her?
I don't have an answer to that. I don't know what the response would be.
If you asked her to go for a walk with you, would she go for a walk with you? And then if you tried to hold her hand, would she hold your hand? These kind of things.
I'm not feeling that vibe.
So you don't
No.
want that right now.
No, I'm saying that if I made an action or I extended that type of gesture, then I don't know what would happen. And I mean, rejection really wouldn't bother me, to be honest. I mean, it's whatever. But I haven't extended it. So I can't answer based on not doing that, what the response on the other end might be.
Sure. And it's actually one reason I bring it up right now is because you're to the point where you don't fear rejection, you're at peace. Let me even say one more thing. So imagine I don't know if there's a lake nearby, but we've got a lake nearby here in town. So I'm imagining you're by the lake. It happens to be a beautiful day. And you say, let's go for a walk together. And you just walk for 20 minutes. You say nothing. Maybe the dog is with you, whatever. You say nothing. At the end of the walk, you reach over and you take her hand and you hold her hand up like this and you just trace your finger along her hand like this for 20 seconds. So it's an intimate act of really what I'm doing, right? You just and this just came to my mind right now. You hold her hand up because it's not verbal. It's not a known gesture. It's going to be a pattern break. She won't really know what you're doing. Hold her hand up and you trace her hand like this. And you just experience the moment as if this is the only 10 seconds of your life. You just teleported into this human body for 10 seconds and you trace her hand for 10 seconds like this, just feeling her hand against your hand, this different, fairly strange moment. And then you put her hand down and you Don't say anything, and then you just tell her, hey, that was a really nice walk. That was a great walk that we just had. Now, as an example, that's a 10-second, 20-second, fairly intimate act where you're not asking her for something. There's no history of, well, what does it mean if I hold his hand while we go for a walk? And there's all this story around it potentially, or her defenses can be up. But something like that, I mean, the reason I came up with that is I could imagine doing that on a first date. You go for a walk, you take her hand, she doesn't know what you're doing. She's just standing there letting you do because she feels safe, and you do some kind of strange intimate act. You touch her hand, or you put her hand on your chest, on your heart for 5 seconds, and you take a big breath, and then you put her hand down and you just leave for the evening. Hey, that was a great walk. Thank you. It was good to see you. Like this would be a minute example of something to do that's a level 3 moment. And I don't expect that. It's not a play to get something from her. There's no 3D chess happening. It's just leading a 10-second, 20-second level 3 quote unquote moment. Those are the little practices if you wanted to do them.
You've given me something to think about.
Yeah, totally.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely. Good stuff. And many men, even some men that are on this call right now, many men, even that they're on this call right now, in that next breath will say, you know what, Jeff, I don't even want to do that. And that's fair. If you don't want to do that, that's where you are. And at least if you were a man saying that to me right now, at least we came to a new understanding of your own self. Because many guys will say, well, I want something, or I want her to do something, and I'll give them a suggestion that's very easy, so to speak. And then they say, well, I don't even want that. Like, okay, we've gotten to a new level. You don't even want that right now. Maybe there's pain, resentment, anger, sadness, something else in the way. And then we deal with that. At least that's actually what the next thing is in any man's particular work, if that would be the case. Yeah. All right, I have a few takeaways. I always prepare some takeaways, so I'll move through these quickly. Maybe this is a mindset shift for each man, for you watching this. Maybe it's something to work on. Number one, each of us are always on an individual journey. So she is, and you are, and we always have been, and we always will be. And that's the first step in peace, as we were saying here, is unburdening yourself from, she doesn't have to be on the same journey as you. And by the way, she never has been. We've just been building one together, and maybe she's not on that same path with you right this moment. Number two, her values and perceptions will likely be different than yours. They will be different than yours, especially if she's a feminine woman who's kind of camouflaged herself or hidden herself or chameleoned herself for you over the years, maybe even inadvertently. And now she might be realizing through her own work, this is the topic today, through her own work, she may be realizing, wow, I've lost myself, as many women would say. And she might have different sets of values or perceptions in you, and that's likely, and that's okay. And number three, you must willingly grasp the next personal challenge in your life. So regardless of her, you must turn your shoulders and voluntarily take on the next challenge that you want to attack in life, that you want to take on, whether it's to build something, learn something, play a new sport, get new friends, cultivate old friendships. That's number three. Right. So we're all on an individual journey. Her perceptions are going to be different than yours. And it's incumbent upon you as a man to face the next challenge. What's the next voluntary challenge for you in life? Here are links if you want to check out the Good Guys to Great Men coaches, goodguys2greatmen.com, and my website, Great Men Move Mountains. If you want to reach out to me, greatmenmovemountains.com/contact. And for a takeaway, here's some other links of mine. For a takeaway, this is the Buddhist Thich Nhat Hanh, phenomenal stuff. And this is a spiritual challenge. This is a conscious awareness type of challenge around permanence. And he writes, it's not impermanence that makes us suffer. What makes us suffer is wanting things to be permanent when they are not. So again, her perceptions are likely going to change from yours. You're all on an individual journey. You have a new challenge to face. And if we try to hold on to what's not permanent, if we try to make permanent what is not, we're going to suffer. And that's why we're here to grow with one another. Again, I'm here to grow. I'm always on a learning journey along with you guys, and I appreciate you. Great to see you. If you have questions, email me, right? And I'll see you next time. Have a good weekend. Great, guys.